everybody abstracts a different reality. When you come through a room, you abstract the reality you're prepared to abstract. You pick up the signals that interest you, and your brain records them and organizes them.
We all have our own reality tunnel, and in our reality tunnel, we pick out some things and ignore other things. And we got 10 billion cells in our brain receiving hundreds and hundreds of millions of signals all the time. We just pick out the ones that fit into the established grooves in our brain, the reality tunnel that's been laid down by past experience. We all have our own belief system, and the signals that fit our belief system get in. The signals that don't fit our belief system get ignored, or if they keep coming back, we go to a psychiatrist to get cured and make them go away.
Once you get used to thinking in terms of the tuned in and the not tuned in, then all the problems in philosophy about being and non-being and so on seem absolutely nonsensical. We don't know what is or what isn't. All we know is what we tuned in and what we didn't tune in. So if you keep track of what you tuned in, you know, that's what you can talk about meaningfully. What you didn't tune in, you can only make guesses about, or noises, or garbles, or frantic hand gestures, but you can't really know anything about them. You only know what you've tuned in. Now, what you haven't tuned in is not necessarily non-existent. It's just not tuned in. So that takes care of the whole problem of being and non-being, which Western philosophers have been debating for the last 2,500 years. You don't know anything about being or non-being. All you know is what you tuned in.
Well, to quote Bucky Fuller, I seem to be a very... I can't find any constant roughing in Tom Wilson. There seems to be a process of change all the time. I'm certainly not the guy I was at 40, and I'm certainly not the kid I was in Catholic school at 7 or 8. I started out in a little tiny Irish Catholic ghetto in Brooklyn or Long Island, I'm not sure which. And somehow I have traveled from Maui in the east to Berlin in the west, which is half of the time zones on the planet. And I feel like as I've expanded my travel in space, I've expanded my travel through the world of ideas also. I can't believe I started out a good Catholic school boy. There must have been some good times. But when I think of my childhood, I just remember how frightened I was of the nuns in the school I went to, how sadistic they were. There was so much mystery and ambiguity about everything. That's why there's so much in my novels. But adults never gave a straight answer to a child about anything. Everything was lies, hypocrisy, evasions. I knew there was something going on they were hiding from me, and it used to scare me. I wasn't quite sure what it was. It might have something to do with the Wolfman or the Frankenstein monster. I didn't know what the hell it was. And I didn't trust them at all. At one point, sometime around 7 or 8, they admitted there was no Santa Claus. And as soon as I recovered from the shock, my next thought is, when are they going to admit there's no God? They never did. And I went back to believing in God under the hammering and pounding of the nuns up until I was about 13, I guess. I was a very obedient child. Everybody agrees to that. Everybody I can remember from my childhood. I started rebelling in my teens, and I'm rebelling more every year. I remember, I don't know how old I was, 14, 15, another unbeliever in myself at Brooklyn Tech got into an argument with a student who was still a Catholic. He said, if you really believe what you say, you would have the courage to ask God to strike you dead right now to prove that you believe he doesn't exist. And I got scared for a minute, then I went ahead and did it, and nothing happened, and I felt totally liberated. Fuck you, you're not there after all. That was a great moment of liberation, which I hardly ever recalled until tonight. My God, that was a very important turning point in my life. Here's to the good nuns for telling me what books not to read.
Interacting processing. Interacting processing. Interacting processing.
Friends, everything Pope Bob does puts things into a perspective, and not just a unique perspective, but the correct perspective! Because it includes all other perspectives. And so, my friends, I'm very happy and proud to present the Carl Sagan of religion, the Jerry Falwell of quantum physics, the Arnold Schwarzenegger of feminism, the Helen Keller of art and music, the Nelson Mandela of white supremacists, the James Joyce of swing set assembly manuals, of funerals, the Salvador Dali of assembly line workers, and folks, the Robert Anton Wilson of humanity. Praise God.
Spectacles, testicles, brandy, cigars, you're all popes. You're all absolutely infallible. I have the authority to appoint anybody a Discordian Pope because I'm a Discordian Pope. The first rule after you become a Discordian Pope is to excommunicate every Discordian Pope you meet. This is based on the basic Discordian principle, we Discordians must stick apart. Discordians don't have dogmas, which are absolute beliefs. We have catmas, which are relative meta-beliefs. And the central Discordian catma is, as I said before, any affirmation is true in some sense, false in some sense, meaningless in some sense, true and false in some sense, true and meaningless in some sense, false and meaningless in some sense, and true and false and meaningless in some sense. And if you repeat this 666 times, you will achieve supreme enlightenment in some sense. There are approximately 12 million Discordian popes now. Originally, Malaclips the Younger, the founder of Discordianism, had cards printed, and he'd just hand them out to everybody he met, making them popes. And then I printed the Pope card in the Illuminatus trilogy. But then I was living in Ireland, and the Pope came to Phoenix Park and announced, the guy who thinks he's the only Pope, he announced that bishops could give indulgences over television, which was a new thing in Catholic doctrine. And I got the idea, well, if they can do indulgences on television, I can do pontifications. And so instead of giving out cards, every time I got on radio or television, I made the whole audience popes. Eventually, we'll make every man, woman, and child on this planet a pope.
Most religious people take themselves too damn seriously, which is why they act like such damn fools. I'm using the word damn deliberately for the paradoxical effect.
Like I'm also a Buddhist, a Taoist, and a Confucian.